Greetings. I hope you are well and prospering. I am excited about this next set of videos that I'm working on. Just get started. It's about business rules, sort of an advanced topic. Business rules are very powerful, moderately easy to do. They're not incredibly easy, but moderately easy to do. In general, business rules help you set up a way to keep you from doing something wrong, or to help you do something right, or to add special power that there's no other way to do it. It's a little bit, just a little bit like being able to do a little programming within Sun Plus. You don't need to be a programmer to do business rules, but it does help a little bit if you've had some exposure to programming, like an if-then statement, or while so-and-so is so-and-so do such and such, of just basic programming. I'm not a programmer, I've never programmed at all, but I'm familiar with it, had a course back a million years ago in it, and so I think you'll enjoy these business rules. It's going to be a little bit different than what you normally see. Normally in my videos, I take things from scratch and build it before your very eyes and then show you that it works. Business rules might be just a little bit too complicated for that. So what we'll do is I will show you constructed business rules, and we'll go over lots of them. My intention is to actually look at a good many of the business rules in version 6. This entire project video series and all of the future video series are based on version 6. However, everything about business rules is the same between 5, 4, and 6. So the way you make them is the same. But the rules that we're looking at would be ones that are designed for the 6 structure, the new structure that we're using under 6. If you haven't gone to 6, you'll learn all about that when you go. But that doesn't stop you from doing business rules right now. You can write simple ones for your organization in 5.4, following the principles that we do here. And so with that in mind, let's get started. I'm pretty excited. We'll start with the very first part of today's video on what are the elements of a business rule. What are the parts that you operate within Sun Plus to create a rule? There are 4 elements. Today we'll go over 3 and try to get going on the first element. I'll go over the 3 and then we'll drill down on the first of the 3 elements to make sure you're clear on what that is. So that's all about events. You can see that I am looking at the business rules tab, and the business rules tab may not be available for you because you need to be given permissions to get to it over in your user groups. If you want to work with business rules, you need to get access to these functions, and if you don't know how to get there, you could probably contact support and get them to help you set up access to these if you are entitled based on your organizational security. One of the biggest rules that we need to remember is that when we write a business rule, we're writing a business rule for all business units. Business rules apply to all business units unless you make the rule specifically apply to a certain business unit. I'll show you how later on to do it. There are 3 fundamental parts to a basic business rule. You have an event profile, you have the rule messages, and you have the rule sets. Those are the 3 functions that we are going to use on every rule. Now, we're going to have another video on rule data sets. That is a especially powerful and useful thing, but that becomes the 4th topic. So let me give you the summary from 30,000 feet. An event profile is something that happens in Sun Systems that fires all the rule set. Okay, so when that something happens, now we're going to cover this well, so don't worry, this is just the beginning, just relax. When that something happens, new line on ledger entry, or an import, or create an account, whenever that something happens, it sets off a rule set. A rule set is like a program that instructs Sun Systems what to do. And so rule sets is where we spend 90% of our time in learning about business rules. And that's where the fun is. That's where all the brain work's happening. One of the things a rule set does is say, send a message. So the messages are up in rule message. So let's just say a new line in ledger entry, push a button, new line, that's the event. The rule set decides what needs to be done. Say, send a message that says you cannot use this account and analysis code combination. Well, that message is up there in message. So on at least a theoretical notion, you get your events all created and your rule message is created, and then you drive these rule sets, fire off when the event happens, and send off the message. So it fires off when the event happens, the rule set takes over, decides what to do, and a very common thing for it to do is to send a message, which you get some rule messages. So those are the three workhorses of business rules. Our focus today is on events. Now, events are everything in the Sun Plus world. Now, the simplest way to think of events are events that happen while you're using the software. For example, pushing post in ledger entry, or pushing create in account setup, or pushing exit in account setup, or opening account allocations, and so forth and so on. They're all events. But also events can be a little bit more sophisticated than that, in that the event can be limited to a specific business unit or to a specific date. So you could say pushing the account creation in a certain business unit is an event, or pushing a ledger entry during this time period, or doing a ledger input into a certain business unit. Those are events. So it's not just something that happens in Sun systems, it is something that happens limited by other parameters like dates or business units. So let's look at what an event is, and to get a teaching case in front of us, I thought we'd come over and look at chart of accounts for 1 second. I've opened my chart of accounts window, and I'm scratching around. You know, all the really good business rules that need to be created, Carl has already created them. So anything I come up with is going to sound a little bit lame, but let's just say, consider the fact that we create an ER account, and for Mac 01, we're creating an employee account for Mac. And when we create it, we're going to put in all the information, and just for the sake of a little simple one for me to show you, let's have a business rule that says whenever we create an ER account, we want a message that comes up and reminds us that we also need to create a who for that person. But it's very simple. Whenever we create an ER account, we want a reminder to come up to say, don't forget to create a who. And so the event here, we go in to create this account, and we put in the description and so forth, and then we push exit to create the account, and that is the point. We want it to come up with a message that says, don't forget to create a who account. Our focus is on events, and so the event in this case is for all business units, because I'm not going to limit it by business units. The pushing of the exit fires off the creation of this account after it's been set up. And so that is the event. And so let's go over and look at the event function. So the first thing with business rules is that you have to identify the event that makes the rule work, and they are done over here. Now, the event profiles are almost every button you push in Sun Systems is an event. And frankly, I think that Carl, our great guy who did most of this work, has created events already for almost anything anyone could want. Your first starting point isn't to create an event, but to see if the event has already been created. So for example, here, chart of accounts, set defaults, that's the event that I'm talking about creating. Now I'm going to create it again just so you can see how it is created, but it's already there. Here is the end of line for ledger entry, or a post, end of transaction. Almost everything that you could imagine has already been set up as an event. You just find the one you want, and you don't need to even create an event. Like for example, here is setting up an asset or setting up an address. But in the outside case that you don't have the event and you want it, I'm going to show you how to create an event right now. It asks if I want to create, so yes, and this is the creation of a new account. That's the event. Whenever we create a new account, and here we put the period that this event relates to if we wanted to, and a date. And I've racked my brain. Why would we want to create a business rule that applies only to a certain period or a certain date? I have no idea. I cannot imagine where you would use periods or the dates. But now this is the name of the event profile, and it sounds like the event, but this is really an event profile we created. And now we need to come over here and define the event that is linked to the event profile. So we click right there. Now this is sort of a pain in the neck. I don't know what the programmers were thinking when they programmed this, but they made it extremely. The event profile is going to be defined by these rows here, and the one that is selected here, this is what it's applying to. Okay, now so we've created the event profile, but now we are working on the detail lines. And so So it's going to ask us whether we want to create the detail line. So you say, well, don't we have too many creates going on? It's a little bit overdone. And so let's just see. So we're create. All right, we're fired up down here. So I'm creating a new line. The first line of an event profile has to start with an if. If this is the case, then that's the event. I clicked if, and this is still dark. And so I go, okay. And now it has accepted the if, and now we move to the next line. So it's a process of constantly coming down and hitting this okay. If the data item, okay, so let's see what a data items are. We come over here, and this is the rule common fields, and we hit that okay again, and these are fields connected to the event profile. Well, remember the function, of course, is slightly confusing. I just teach it. I don't make this stuff up. We use the word function in Sun Systems in two ways. One, analysis code that refers to the departments in our conference or union or college or whatever, but that's something that we made up. Unfortunately, Sun Systems also calls each of their programs a function. So this is a function, this is a function. Everything in Sun Systems, all these buttons are different functions of Sun Systems. Over in this context, when it says function code, it's not talking about Sabbath School department. It is talking about one of these buttons, one of these processes somewhere in Sun Systems. See, all of these are functions. And so that's what it means when it's saying function code. And that is exactly what we want. If the function code, and now I've got this lit up, it's right down here, and now to progress to the next one, I go okay again, is equal to, and I go okay again, and now we come over here, if the function code is equal, and now here are all of the functions. Okay, financial, go okay, open that up, because I want static data for my class example. I'm trying to open up chart of accounts. Okay, if chart of accounts is the function, so now we have gotten within the program of chart of accounts. All right, now once we are in here, but what do we want to fire off? What about the chart of accounts is the event? Okay, so we have to select the events that are available from within the chart of account. And every time it's clicking OK, there's a certain logic in this, because every time it's clicking OK, it is narrowing down our field. So we're done with the first if. If we're in chart of accounts, it could be if we're in a certain business unit. So now I want to add a new line, and so I go OK. I want to add it below this. The logic is going to be from the top to the bottom, so I want to add it below it. But if I wanted one above it, I could do insert, which I don't. I want to create a new line, and now I've started a new one. If we could use an OR logic here, if this is the function, OR that's the function. If this is a ledger entry or a ledger import, you see you can string together the criteria, either one. But right now we want if. Okay, if we go okay, we have rule common fields. These are all different things that you could put as your criteria, but in this case, these are the available events from within the chart of accounts setup. And so I'm going to do call point. If the call point, okay, is equal to, okay, you see how I'm keeping that going down and hitting this okay, is equal to, and these are the available call points. So call points are events within chart of accounts, and I want to do call point before data posting. Okay, so this is basically saying when we hit the post button, check and fire the rule at that point. Okay, so that basically sets up the event. The person has the chart of accounts open and they are trying to save the data, and at that point fire off the business rule. We haven't set the business rule up. We first have to create an event, and so we go okay, we're done with the event. The demo event is to fire off whenever the chart of accounts try to post the data. And it's not very exciting what we've done so far, but all we've done is create one event. And like I said before, the most important fact I've said is that all of these events have already been set up in version 6, and something similar to them have been set up in version 5. So maybe we'll take a peek at one or two just to see what they look like. One of the big ones that we use a lot is a ledger entry end of line. So you're doing a ledger entry. Once we put in the information, then we're going to click new line. That is the event that we're looking at right here. Ledger entry end of line. And so we go okay, and let's look at this. So we go okay, and so this is ledger entry end of line, and the note is there. It doesn't apply to ledger import. So we want to be careful the way that the business rules are set up. And so the details of ledger entry end of line, let's look at the way that one was defined. if the function code is equal to ledger entry, and if the call point is equal to the end of line. So this is not rocket science going on. All right, so that was just a nice one. We'll look at one more. Another event code that's interesting is the fixed asset setup. Setting up a new fixed asset, and you're going to see that it is very similar to what we've already done. And so we do that. Is asset records, and the call point is before data posting, exactly the one we did for chart of accounts. So you can see it's very simple to create these things. The only thing that would be interesting is if you wanted to put in if the business unit was so-and-so, and if the function code, and the logic here is and. If the function code is asset records, and if the call point is equal to data. So you could have if the business unit is equal to ADA, if the function code is equal to asset records, and if the call point, so it works with just the business unit. And so that is how we create an event. That will be enough for today's video, and we still have 3 elements to cover. One, the messages only takes a minute, and so we'll do that right away at the start of the next video. So thanks for listening, and I appreciate you and what you are doing in the Sunplus Network. Don't forget to go over to Yammer and participate in the discussions there. Thanks.